Hello and welcome to this episode of Natter with Neve. Today I have the wonderful Tania Teodor with me. Tania is a spiritual mentor who grew up, spent part of her childhood in Romania and then the rest of it in Italy. And that was quite a transition because she went from communist regime to Western consumerism. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for having me here. I'm really grateful.
You're welcome. As you know, I love listening to people's stories and hearing people's stories. And one of the things you said in the form that you filled in for this podcast was that you were greatly influenced by your grandparents. Can you tell
Yes.
me a little bit about your grandparents and what it was about them that influenced you?
So, as you mentioned, I was born in communist Romania a couple of years before the revolution. And my grandparents, my grandpa was a writer and a philosopher, not very well regarded by the regime because he had this humorous way of exposing certain things. And my grandmother, she was involved in working for the regime because it was somehow the only way to be able to maintain a job and a family. But yeah, she always treasured spirituality and being able to pass this on to the next generations, which was forbidden. We were not allowed to practice any form of religion or spirituality. And they were my caregivers from early on in life, and they paved my way for being open to spirituality, to academic knowledge, to nature, and also embrace the human part. They had this thing of we need to be kind to each other, we need to do good things in our community. And for me, this was very impactful. Like I rebelled as a teenager from their teachings for a while, which I think it's
Yeah.
natural for us to discover ourselves. But then growing up and coming more and more into my wisdom and into my maturity, I realized how open-minded and how they planted seeds that are sprouting to this day at times in my motherhood, in my entrepreneurial journey, in everything that I do, their seeds keep sprouting to this day. So for me, it's such a foundational part of my being.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been quite something for them though to keep that going and to actually have a spiritual life and to have to keep it secret. I mean, I can't imagine that. I grew up in Ireland where everything was very, very Catholic.
Yes.
Obviously, that has different things going on there, but religion or spirituality wasn't hidden. It was very much out in the open. We were encouraged, but it was down a certain path. But I cannot imagine living a life where you're not allowed have that side to your life.
Yes, it really makes people feel constricted and somehow alone, disconnected. And I think that's why they really wanted to keep this going. My great grandmother, which I had the honor also to grow up with, and both sides of my grandparents, they passed on like prayers, little songs, little rituals. My great grandmother was saying that she was taking my mom and her sister under the table and teach them about the cross and different. They are Orthodox Christians, and it's a lot of mixing in there that keeps alive a lot of folk Romanian traditions. So they were passing on this mix of beliefs and spirituality, but all like with pulled curtains, closed doors. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds incredibly hard. Also, I mean, I presume there was some sort of punishment as well if you got caught.
Yes, absolutely. From being taken to short time prison, longer time prison for your whole family to get interrogated. I mean, there were all sorts of things that could happen, and also there were people that were there to tell upon other people. So I grew up also with this kind of fear of being watched, of being followed, and it's crazy because I was only two at the revolution, but talking to friends of my generation, we all feel that there's something that can infringe on our privacy, on our intimate space because of this. So it's an intergenerational thing that we are just
Yeah.
healing now.
Yeah, I mean, well, that trauma, that your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents would have felt. I mean, they were being watched, so
Yes.
that would have passed down. I mean, I think there is evidence now that these things do actually pass down in our DNA, that it's not, it changes your DNA as
Yes.
it's passed down. So yes, it's quite natural that you would feel that. I mean, I cannot imagine living in a place where you're not allowed to express your beliefs.
Yes, and
And
ultimately it was about expression, because if it was not spirituality, you were not allowed to express yourself through how you dress or how you have your hair or what music do you listen to, and a lot of banned books and things like this, which started very early on after the Second World War when we moved into the communist sphere. And most of my grandparents' memories from childhood were with burning books and them having to be displaced to different places in order to for their family to be able to work, because they were not seen as good people by the regime. They were seen as part of the intellectuals and the bourgeoisie, so to speak. So it was a hard transition and a lot of expropriation and taking their stuff away from them. So that's another thing that has been passed a lot in Eastern Europe in general through generations.
do you think some of that has fed into your nomadic lifestyle?
Yes, yes, I do think it has to do with this as well, because we were not allowed to travel. So it was very hard to go out of the country. And my family did dream of travel. My great grandmother, she was young when the wars started and all of this. So she had to stop her dreams of studying abroad and doing all sorts of things. So basically, each generation dreamt before me to go traveling, go exploring the world. And my mom and dad did leave immediately, like a few months after the revolution. They both hopped abroad.
Okay. And you went to Italy.
Yes, my mom to Italy, and we stayed there for a while. For me, it was a complex thing because I missed a lot Romania. In a way, it was more free in that chaos. In the same time, like shops were still empty, the vibe was very gray, very, very communist bloc. So both of the worlds had things that I missed and things that I didn't want. So I
Yeah.
kept going between the two, choosing school in Romania mainly because I couldn't integrate in the Italian system very well. So this was also
Yeah.
part, but yeah, it was more colorful. People were smiling, things were feeling like they are going good. When in Romania it was still this chaos. People didn't know. Then we had some protests against the new regimes, and we had a big tragedy going on. So everybody was deflated after. So yeah, the first 10 years at least in Romania were not fun, so to speak, to witness necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I guess freedom takes getting used to as well, doesn't it?
Yes, yes, and it's all at once. I think that's what confused a lot of the teenagers and youth at the time. My mom was very young, also at the time she was 19 at the time of revolution. But they wanted to see, they wanted to embrace the new things, and I can totally understand now from my age and what I live that need to explore everything, taste everything. You get
Yeah.
to a supermarket and there are 10 types of different chips or something, crisps, which didn't exist in our country. So it's such a wow, all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's quite a transition. How did your family navigate that transition?
So there was this tendency of trying, experimenting, having what we didn't have. So lots of music. I remember my grandpa started a whole collection of like tapes there were at the time, and he had a pickup
Yeah.
still from the age, and they were really happy to be able to listen to music loudly in the house. So there was a celebration and this euphoria of freedom for a
Yeah.
while. It's just people finding their place and what to do. And of course, a lot of corruption came in. The political side was not going how people really wanted. So, yeah, there were, as I said, advantages, but also this confusion like, what are we doing now? What are we getting into?
Yeah, I can imagine. And as I said, of, suddenly being having that freedom. I mean, I can that must be huge when you're not allowed to do so many different things. You're not, as you said, not allowed music, certain books were banned. You weren't allowed freedom of speech, you weren't allowed to practice a religion. and then all of a sudden the doors are open and you can do all of these things. And yeah, it sounds like, yeah, that could be quite euphoric to start with. But then I'm guessing, yeah, real confusion could start to creep in, because once you kind of, because you then have to choose your path, don't you? You have to choose what it is, what freedom looks like for you.
Yeah, exactly. And how to navigate this freedom, as in not to become extremely materialistic, which is something that happened a lot in those times, and showing
Yeah,
social status through material stuff, which my family didn't want to do. But in a way, it also happened. Like, you come with these new clothes from Italy and you have access to this sweet. So I think they had a great responsibility to teach us not to become in one extreme or another. And I remember my grandpa always telling us, experiment, search, touch, but don't fall into extremes. Or whatever you do, come back to a balanced view, a balanced approach, because extremes are detrimental. And this really stayed with me, because at those transitional times, it was very easy to fall into extremes, the freedom extreme or the nostalgia extreme for somebody leading for you, and so on.
yeah. And I guess, I mean, at that point as well, people were having to kind of make their own decisions as well. I mean,
Yes.
I absolutely love reading. I'm an avid reader, but I sometimes go into a bookstore, and I'm overwhelmed by the choice. And I stand there thinking, I don't know what to buy, because I don't know what I want to. And I can imagine that same sensation must have been there for people at that time as well.
Yes, yes, a lot of options all of a sudden. Before, you were getting this job and this house and this school, and everything was like paved for you in this type of regime, in a way. But then, yes, it becomes a thing of self-leadership, in my opinion. And
Yeah,
I am grateful for my grandparents and also my parents for, through all that chaos, finding their place into this, and also keeping true to their values, which they did so well, in my opinion, and I'm really grateful for that.
because they kept you on the straight and narrow, I guess, in some ways. I mean, it sounds like you were allowed to explore who you were, very much who you were, but they also made sure that you were aware of, of the extremes.
Yes. Yes, and they always told me that we have to learn from how people gave space for these things to happen, like many atrocities during history, and what happened that we gave our power away to different, and still to this day I'm contemplating how it became so numb that we sit and watch things on our screens, and then yeah, we basically give permission for them to happen, because yeah, we are still in this situation. But I do believe that they cultivate discernment and this love for freedom, and not a superficial freedom, because I think capitalism does this as well, gives the illusion of freedom, and you have the impression that you can choose, but actually it's very much herded into certain directions. So
Yeah.
I do believe into the freedom of choosing and creating life also outside of systems that don't nurture us and don't align to our values.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you choose a life of capitalism, of making money, the thing is that you've got to keep making money.
Yeah.
And so you get stuck on that treadmill, and that doesn't feel like, well, it certainly doesn't feel like freedom to me. Um, I'm
Yes,
very
that,
much, I need obviously a certain amount of money to live, because we've got to pay our bills. I need electricity in my house, I need heating, I need to eat. But beyond that, I'm not really very materialistic. Um, but I mean, one of my values is kindness. I believe that, if we could all just be a little bit kinder to each other. And I know that's one of your values as well, because we spoke a little bit about that before we started. So, how would you say kindness features in your life?
I will say a little story that happened when I was little, and really connected me to this kindness and doing something for the community. I think yeah. I made a post at one point about this, but I was very little, and where we were living in Bucharest, we were opposite a place that had some soldiers taking care of it. And one day, one of the soldiers came with a little boy, he was around 16 years old, that tried to steal some bottles from our garden, empty bottles to sell them. And that was like fresh, 92, 93, something like this. And I remember going to the door with my grandmother and this soldier asking her if they should call the police on this boy. And my grandmother called my grandpa and they said, no, no, we take it from here. We will talk to the boy. And they found out he escaped from one of those orphanages that got quite famous around the world that didn't have great conditions in them. And he didn't have anybody outside. And he didn't know what to do to get by. So they invited him to eat with us and to give him whatever my granny could put together. And I remember he came and visited for a while afterwards, letting them know he found a job. She kept giving him food and stuff like this. And for me, that was an act of trust towards human beings because he was young and my grandpa explained everybody can make mistakes, everybody can be desperate and hungry and don't reject people just because of like surface things like this and bring kindness into everything. And for me, that really made me believe that everybody has good potential. Everybody can help everybody if we really open ourselves. But if we come with fear in society, thinking that everybody will attack us or steal from us, we don't create this space of kindness anymore. We create rejection.
We do indeed. And can you imagine with that for that young boy, if that soldier had called the police, the trajectory of his life could have been so completely different.
Yes.
And all it took was a few words and a mail. And and that's something I think we could, you see that standing in the supermarket queue and people are getting grumpy because somebody's taking too long. And you just think, just smile at somebody, just, understand because someday it's going to happen to you. You're going to be the one who can't find their card or their card's not working or, the cashier can't find the price for something. You have to go running to the rest of the shop and everybody's in a queue behind you. So that's my view is actually, put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Exactly, exactly. And to create this space for others to be as well, of course, with healthy boundaries and knowing where we stand in life, but give others space to exist. And I think that with all this offending, that people get offended very easily nowadays, and all the politically correct thing, which I can understand certain aspects of it, but it pushes us into more division and not
Yeah.
making space for others to exist with their differences. We don't all need to agree. We don't all need to be on the same frequency, but we can accept that others are humans as well and they are doing their best in their own way and create space for them to exist.
Yeah. I mean, the world would be very boring if we were all the same, if we
Yeah.
didn't have the differences. And if, we didn't all have our own way of doing things, our own stories, things like my podcast wouldn't exist. um, because there is, and that's, I think, we can learn from the variety of people. We just need to take that moment to stop and to actually to listen to people, to hear their stories, to hear what's going on in their lives. Because I actually believe that everybody has a story. Even the people who think they've got the most boring lives in the world have a story because there's something that got them there, or there's something that they do. For instance, there's, I know people who say they don't do anything, they're not kind, they don't believe they're kind, they don't, and yet they volunteer. They're in soup
Yeah, yeah.
kitchens, they're in shops, they're out doing things in the community all the time. And I think actually that's what, they're the sort of stories I want to hear. I want to hear about what you're doing to help other people, to connect with other people. Sometimes if you're walking down the street and you smile at somebody or you say, I love your dress,
Yeah.
that can make somebody's day. We don't know what's going on in their heads.
Yeah, absolutely. I do say this often in my spaces or when I come online and so on, that this is such a small thing that can make such a big impact, such a big ripple effect to go out of our houses into our day with this awareness that we impact through our smile, through our kindness, people, even if we don't know them, like this on the street. And this takes further. Maybe they will smile further to somebody else. They will be kinder to their children at home, or you don't know how it ripples effect. But what you can do and what each one of us can do is to have this intention to bring more kindness through our presence into everyday living.
Yep. And it doesn't really take much, does it, to actually set that intention before you walk out the door. And yes, there are things that irritate us in life. Of course, there are. Things go wrong, like my laptop not wanting to switch on before we started this. But we have to learn to take these things with grace, don't we? And sort of just to be kind. You know, like sometimes when things go wrong, we just want to get into a grump, don't we?
Yeah.
And if, because I sent you a message saying I'm going to be a few minutes late and you were quite understanding about that kind of, oh, okay, that's fine. Whereas, other people would, oh, well, no, I'm going to cancel then. If you're going to be late, I'm not coming. That's okay. We do have to show some understanding for where people are coming from.
Yes,
I think I'm
absolutely.
going off track somewhere here, but
No, it's great because I truly believe that making intentional space for others as well. And this, because people are like, I'm doing this to get something in return. By being kind and bringing kindness into everyday living, things start coming in our life on a like positive note, how people perceive this giving and receiving. It's not like I give you and you have to give me necessarily. We give into the field and it comes
yeah,
back to us. So for me, this is pure magic because people ask, like, what's magic? What's the subtle? This, the awareness of how our energy impacts the whole. So,
yes, yeah. I mean, that is, yeah. Your energy is just. I mean, you've heard the expression, you cut the tension in the room with a knife. Like when somebody,
yeah,
there are people who just walk into a room and you immediately feel their impact. And
yeah,
sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not so good. Um, there's some people like my yoga studio. We used to have a woman who used to come in, and like she would be furious if the traffic had been late or whatever. And she was late for class, and she would walk into the studio and she would her mat down like really loud. The rest of us are all trying to do our breathing exercise at the beginning of the class, and all you hear is this great big loud squash of the mat. You think, oh, okay. And that just changed the energy completely in the room because she was furious because she got stuck in traffic and was late for class. Whereas if she'd just taken a few breaths outside the door and thought, right, I'm late, I'm not going to disturb everybody else. I'm going to come in quietly and just take my place. That would have, changed not only things for her, but for everybody else as well. So we do have, and I don't think a lot of us realize the impact we have on other people.
yeah. And I do believe it's a practice. It doesn't come easily, especially if we were not aware of how these things work, but with practice and realizing what are our triggers and what makes us like this, it really works. So for me, this is a great tool, especially with my daughters, for example, that can really
Yeah,
bring certain responses and reactions in me. I learned that I am the grown up. I can pause for a bit and then come back to their discussion or their things without the triggers. And then I can deal with them,
yeah,
of course. I can see what's coming up there, what's from my childhood, maybe, or what's going on, but not put on them my own frustration or inability of understanding my emotions. I'm not perfect, of course, and not always works, but it's
yeah.
something that I consciously try to do every time when I feel this towards them.
Yeah, I mean, my youngest still lives with me. She's 24. I mean, she works, but she can't, living where we live, she can't afford to move out at the moment. So she's back living with me after university. And there's been like a few days where I've just been really frustrated with something. And she sat here and I said, right. I said, I am going to just lose it. I said, I am going to rant. I'm going to rave. It's got nothing to do with you, but I just need to get this out of my system because we do actually sometimes just need to get that out as
Yeah.
well. And I said, so like I'm going to yell at my computer or whatever it was that was going wrong. Like, just ignore me because it's got nothing. And she's like, okay, cool. Because I've told her it's got nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just started yelling at something and then she sat there and she's thinking, oh my God, mum's crossing me, mum, mum's yelling. And, that would, I mean, she has a history of anxiety anyway. So that would have kind of thrown her into like, overthinking and anxiety about what mum yelling at. But because I've had the presence of mind to say, right, I am really frustrated and I need to get this out now. So I'm going to.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I know your daughter is a lot younger than mine, so it's not, you can't quite do that. But yeah, it's taking that step back, isn't it? It's
Yes,
learning
and
to,
what I do
yeah,
believe is I am quite honest. I mean, age appropriate, of course, because they are
yeah,
10 and 8, but I am honest about my feelings, about the fact that I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. They've seen me crying, they've seen me
yeah,
in my own emotions. I always do my best to explain to them that it's natural. Humans have this big spectrum of emotions and
yeah,
try to lead by example that, yeah, we are allowed to express them. It's not okay to come and express them on their dad, on them, or vice
yeah,
versa. So we are trying, of course, like any family, we have our own things, but we try to use this as an emotional intelligence education and to be honest, because I did have moments when I found out that the grown-ups in my life were pretending to be perfect or try to make everything look great
yeah,
just because that's how the education was at the time. And I was really feeling betrayed. Like, hey, I thought you're perfect and you're not. So I want my daughters to know that I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. And if I can be there for them, present, intentional, for me, that's very important.
yeah. And I think it is. I mean, I grew up, not being allowed to show emotion. Um, we just wasn't allowed. And I think actually that sets you up for a life of, you I mean, I was depressed for a lot of my adult life, but I didn't realize I was. I just thought I was a miserable cow. Because, but what it was repressed anger and resentment from
Yeah.
childhood, from not being allowed to express how I felt during childhood. So I've always tried to encourage my children, like you, in an age appropriate way to express themselves. And my son has found it more difficult, I would say, than my daughters. And I think that's something we've really got to work on in society as well, because men still have that. There's still that very much that, big boys don't cry. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, why not? You're human.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's important, and through our own journeys as women are also helping this masculine part within ourselves, because I do believe we carry this energetics
Yeah,
within, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, or anything like this, and to understand that the masculine within and external also needs healing, integration, expression, a lot of
yeah,
self-expression. So yeah, for me, this is an important part, and I learn a lot through my partner. And yeah, listening and being open to the men in my life, like relatives, friends, because yeah, they are a sort of mystery at certain points for me, you know.
yeah,
I want to know
yeah.
how
Well, I
to
mean,
help
yeah,
or be there for them to be
yeah,
able to express um, like in their own way. I'm not saying they have to be like us, a full whirlwind of emotions monthly and go through all of it, because I understand the differences. But yes, encourage them to speak up, to express themselves, to let themselves be vulnerable with their moms, with their partners, with their friends. I think it's
yeah.
important for our evolution as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's something that it's not just men. I think a lot of women need to learn to do that as well. I think with all this consumerism in society and stuff, I think in some ways we've gone. I don't know. We've disconnected from ourselves as well as each other. And I love all this technology. I love Zoom, that we can Zoom people across the world. Like, you're in Italy now, and I'm in the UK, and we can talk to each other, and that is fantastic. But I think we're missing our local community connections as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I part of my mission coming back to Europe is to create more in-person things. I used to do this before the pandemic, a lot of in-person, from craft things to markets, just bringing people together.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I do believe in the power of coming together, debating things, finding solutions to current problems. And I do believe there's a lot of power lying into having strong local communities. And I do believe it's each of us responsibilities to bring this within our community, step by step. We don't have to create movements of 20,000 people in one day, but slowly, slowly to show that we are open to listen to the ones in our community, to create something together, maybe a tea meeting, maybe a book club. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe a gardening project. There are so many ways to reconnect with our communities, and I do believe it's very important at this time with all these
I mean,
new
I started,
transitions.
yeah, I started an initiative back in May where I do in a local cafe. I hold once a month. I hold something called I call Conversation Corner, and I literally go and I just sit there for 2 hours, and people can come, drop in, have a conversation, a coffee, and they can stay for the whole 2 hours if they want, or they can leave after 15 minutes or whatever. And not once since May have I been. I've done it now every month since May, and not once have I been left on my own.
This is
Every
great.
month
That's a great
people come.
idea. Well done.
Sometimes it's 3 people, sometimes it's 4 people. I think the most I've ever had is 6 people, but it's there, it's growing. And
Yeah.
I've got a couple of women who are regulars now, and they've actually told me it's been a lifeline for them to know that they've got this every month to come to. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking at expanding it. I want to do one in the evening somewhere, but it's very hard to find somewhere around here that doesn't involve alcohol in the evenings.
Yeah, I can imagine
I
a
think
bit.
alcohol changes things.
Yes, absolutely. For us, it's we we used to drink, but we don't drink almost 6 years now, or at all, occasional for
Yeah,
meals or something. But in Europe, it's so socially accepted, and people do it after lunch, for dinner, at the pub, here and there. That at times you almost feel strange, like, oh, it's something wrong
yeah,
with me. I'm not drinking. But I'm like, I prefer this clarity. I understand the social aspect of it, but for me, especially when we organize meetings, discussions, I do
yeah,
prefer them without the influence of alcohol. So I can totally understand.
yeah. I mean, I just think alcohol changes how we believe, how we behave.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I want people to just be themselves.
exactly.
That's without. And I mean, a couple of the women have come on have said that it has taken them quite a lot of courage just to get out the door and come along. I think great, you know, because the more you can do that, the more you can, find other things to do in your community, and you'll do more. And I think, yeah, a lot of it comes down to our own personal confidence and courage. And I think
Yes.
our spirituality can help with that a lot. This is something that you help people with, isn't it? With your
Yes, yes.
spiritual thinking.
I feel that my mission is to bridge the human and the divine, the human experience and the spiritual experience as not being separate things, but to anchor this spiritual awareness and practice into, yeah, everyday living as a lifestyle. And I grew up immersed in spirituality, so I think this contributed a lot to my lack of self-doubt into the connection with the divine, and that I am divinely protected, is my right to be here and experience life. And I feel this gave me the confidence to take this, like, choices that are a bit unconventional with my lifestyle and education for my children and everything, because there was peer pressure and different things coming up. But I have a strong connection with the divine, and I tap into that as a source of power, inner power, and it helps me also heal and bring humbleness into myself and knowing my human experience, but also have this, yeah, inspiration and drive of creating and looking for new ways of being. So I
Yeah.
do believe that it's important for us to bring this spiritual experience into the daily living without a lot of dogma or like getting scared we have to meditate 50 hours a week and stuff like that. No, it's
Yeah.
simple things that we like, intention in what we do every day. Even cooking and drinking our coffee can be a ritual. That's the thing, that somehow it appears to be very complicated when it's actually so simple to ask spirit to come into our daily living.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people confuse spirituality with religion, first of all.
Yes,
Yeah.
which yeah, has been a lifelong studying, researching, tapping into for me. And again, my grandpa always told me, before taking a decision about your religion and spirituality, make sure that you have knowledge about them, how they work, what institutionalized religion is doing, and what has been doing. And I appreciate this because, yeah, I've been going on a proper academic study before forming some opinions, but I do not agree with how big institution religions are going, and they have been going for a long time, especially the taking away the feminine aspect of divinity completely. And this has to do with the patriarchal controlling system that it's quite obvious. So for
Yeah.
me, that was a big no-no. I do believe in the seeds that each religion has. So everyone has very good seeds of values and kindness and how to be with each other. But I do believe they basically threw the baby and kept the dirty water, and that's what they gave to people.
Well, I think, I mean, it goes back to, everything in society, really, government, religion, whatever. It's kind of, there are certain people who get to the top and they want the power, the control, and the wealth.
Yes,
And
that's why I
that
don't
feeds
resonate with
down.
hierarchies, you say in English, like hierarchical pyramid type of systems, but more bringing back the circle, the spiral, the community,
See, yeah.
decisional aspect, and not this somebody gets up there and then everything. I do not believe in this trickle thing either, in economy or in anything for that
Oh,
matter,
I don't
because
think anything
whoever is
trickles
up there,
down. I think it all goes up.
yeah, exactly. Whoever is up there can siphon in whatever
Yeah.
direction. So for me, that's not sustainable. And it's also, again, leaving feminine perception out of it, which I don't want anymore for the future, for our children. I want a
Yeah.
balance between these energetics in our society, in business. Like, I mean, how we make money, it's very masculine. How everything, how the
Yeah.
medical system, it's built on male research on male bodies. It's like, okay, we need some
I mean,
change.
that is improving, I think. They are doing
Yes,
more research on
slowly.
women. But I don't know. It seems to me like that men are kind of afraid of women.
I do believe there's internalized fear of the feminine. I do believe the lack of representation of the feminine in the relationship with the divine has to do with this. So we are missing the archetypal mother. We are missing this archetypal love from our life, from our
Yeah.
energetic matrix and society. So for me, that will give fear towards women, but also the ability of women to naturally navigate the seen and the unseen and be portals here on earth. I mean, through birth, through birthing our project, not only children. I think can seem overpowering and overwhelming for men that want control and, yeah, keep things for themselves.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, yeah, well, my vision is a world where, we all work together. And,
Yes,
that my work is empowering women so that we can actually, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. But I do think that both men and women have an awful lot to bring to society
yes,
when we come together, when we learn to listen to each other, when we learn to respect what each other brings. And I think that's kind of missing. And at the moment, I'm quite sad because a lot of my communities and stuff and things that I run, they seem to be women only. And I seem to have engendered that because I want to, because a lot of the women that I work with have had bad experiences with men. But what I do want to do in the future is kind of try and bring in more of the, the men who don't like abuse women so that we can get more of an experience of what true man is, not a man who's seeking power or control, but a man who's sure of himself and who can relate to women. And I think that starts for us women, if we have sons, bringing them up to be that, to
Yes.
not be afraid of the feminine.
Absolutely. I do think, and I talk sometimes with my friends that are mothers of boys, that it's a mission nowadays, and a noble one because they can pave the way for this, and through their self-expression and balanced approach, they can show from an early age what feminine is and how it can be held healthily by the masculine. And yes, I do believe that fathers have a responsibility as well in this by forming by example. But I do believe that the disconnection happened a long time ago, but it's being bridged more and more through our own journey and our own healing. And
Well,
I
yeah,
am
because
grateful
we're
for my partner,
disconnecting. We're
yeah,
trying to
evolving
disconnect
with
from each
me.
other on every level now, not just
Yes.
male and female.
Yes, exactly. And I do appreciate men again that hold space and want to understand what we are doing here, what we are doing now, why we need to free ourselves from all this programming. And I think it's a great idea for us to tap into examples, like you said, of men whose energy is nurturing, sane, balanced, because yeah, a lot of us didn't have this example also growing up. I mean, I had a
Yeah,
great grandpa, but my dad figure was basically missing. So there were things there, but I was lucky with my grandpa that gave a healthy father figure. But I know a lot of us didn't have a healthy example to go by of masculinity either. So it's
yeah.
always a balance and always the two.
It is. And how do we find it? That's the big question, is sort of,
I think even talking like we do today, I'm not even, I think it's one of the most important parts for people to talk, to feel and see what other people think, to debate ideas and possible solutions. I think it's a big part of bringing change. And then, as I said, going into everyday living, not expecting to do big moves and save the world at once. But if
yeah.
we cultivate our relationship with our partner to be harmonious, we bring a bit of change. Like we said, we go on the street to be to bring a bit of good vibe. We bring change. So slowly until it becomes a big thing, I believe.
Yeah, one word and one smile at a time.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's a wonderful point to finish. Thank you very much, Tania, for joining me today. For anybody who wants to get hold of Tania, her details will be in the description on this podcast. And I'll see you all again on the next one. Thank you for listening.